part number 3 of the series Unconscious War Systems. These videos that I'm doing are life experiences, my own life experiences seen from my own perspective. I've had behaviors or patterns or maybe programs that you can say that I've been walking around with and I could not really place them. After I start to heal myself and really look within myself and start to understand why I'm doing certain things, and then realizing later on that they were actually not mine. They were coming from my parents, my grandparents, ancestors, and I started to understand what the topic was that would relate to this subject. And I'm not going to say that I understand people who have been war, because I would have no understanding of it at all. I have not lived in the fear that people who have been in war have been living with, and how intense and that everything can be. So I'm speaking from my own perspective. Blocks that have been, or patterns, programs that have been passed down through the generations. And in this video I would like to share something that I can actually vividly still remember when I was a young girl and I was going to school. So I grew up in a very small town, actually a village, and I was one of the very few foreigners. I'm half Dutch, half Chinese, but my mother grew up in Indonesia. When I went to school, I understood that a lot of children did not really understand what I was talking about. I was more quiet, more gentle, I would say. And I actually did not really understand why they would not understand me. And so I went to my mom and I was like, I have been trying to understand how come that people think in different way. It was me actually being aware that I was thinking in a different way than other people. And I wondered, well, because my mom and my dad, they have different cultural backgrounds, I wondered what is then Dutch and what is Indonesian and what is Chinese. I did not know, so I asked my mom, what is Chinese and what is Indonesian? And she said, I don't know. Which surprised me, because as a child you look at your parents and you look at them in a way as in like, you have all the answers. You can help me explain this. So I asked my mother, how come that you do not understand or do not know that what is Chinese and what is Indonesian? And then she explained to me that her family, generations before her, they actually lived and they grew up in China. And when China was having a war, they fled to Indonesia. And my family started to have somehow like an unspoken rule. They decided to never ever speak about China or anything related to that country afterwards. So my mom said, therefore, I do not know what it is. I do not know what the Chinese culture is or what the rules are. I do not know what it is when it comes to Indonesian. I'm confused myself too. So that made me wonder, because when you see people living in a certain country and they have to flee to another place, either if it is a different city or going to a different continent to survive, when they're having children, how much of their traditional culture will they take with them? And what they are going to inherit from the country that they're born in? that made me just wonder if that is the same for them, being confused of who they are and what kind, the way of thinking, in what kind of culture does it belong to. Also, Indonesia has been part of the Netherlands for 400 years, when not longer. And to know, I have encountered a couple of people from an older generation in Indonesia that they can actually speak Dutch, and some of the words in the language is Dutch. And I started to actually to ask myself recently, while I was thinking about doing this video, how would it have been for them that their country is being occupied by another country that is from a completely different continent, not knowing the culture at all, and then suddenly they will need to follow rules, they need to change things that what they have been doing for generations long maybe, and then suddenly changing something that they have not then done before, changing the language, for example. I know that in the very past, I believe that even they might have been forced to smoke. I believe I've seen something, might be have been in my history class, that they have been told that smoking was very healthy for their lives, so that's why they started to pick up smoking. Therefore, I wondered, are there any other people that might felt confused when they were growing up, knowing that they have a different background, a cultural background, and not knowing where it is coming from? So that's what I want to say, or that's what I want to share, that when I was a child, I was confused of who I was. Of course, as a child, you want to understand what you're actually doing on this planet in the first place. Why are you here? And am I really this body? There are so many things that going through your head, at least for me, there was a lot of things were going through my mind. But one of them was a confusion of who I was, because I could not place my behavior, the way of thinking, to which culture it was, and my mom was not able to answer it because she was never told. There was a strict rule of not to speak about China ever again. Most likely there has been a lot of pain, so I do not know how my family fled or what actually happened in that war. I've got no clue. So this is all that I want to share, and I would like to ask Carla if they have something else that they would like to add when it comes to this topic. Hello, Carla here again. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our view, our perspective. It is a difficult topic for us to discuss, so to say, because in the first place, there are of course questions who you actually are, because there are some questions that you somewhere know that you are not your body either. But what is it that you are? Questioning why you will need to go to school and learn all those subjects. Why are some people mean and some people are nice? Why is it that you will need to go to school and learn something. You might have great joy learning some topics, and with some topics you do not have so much joy and wonder why you will need to learn this. What is coming afterwards? Years of schools, and then you learn you will need to work. But why work in a way, in that kind of way that you have learned at school? And what will happen when you actually do not like the job anymore in some years' time? There are many questions when it comes to asking yourself who you are. When you have had the opportunity to listen to other videos channeled by this being, through this being, you already understand that you are not your body. It is just a vehicle for you to use, because that is how you live on this planet. Later on you might understand that you are consciousness. You occupy a body, but your mind is not able to comprehend that completely. Because how does that work then? Why can I be consciousness? I know how I look like when I look into the mirror. It cannot be that I am not this. But going back to the question, when there has been war and one needs to or is required to move from one country to the next, building up a new life, a lot of courage is needed because your future is not set. It is insecure, unsecure, excuse us. There are a lot of questions going through your mind. Will everything be okay? What shall I do next? Maybe you do not even speak the language. You might have to move yourself all on your own. Maybe you already learned something. Maybe you are so small and young that you are traveling along with your parents and you do not comprehend completely and fully what has happened. Why did you need to leave? Because you are happy there. Could you not stay there for a little bit longer? Why do people fight? Are they angry at us? Have we done something wrong? Confusion, asking yourself and wonder who you are, is somehow giving yourself a place to understand your history. It is something that your mind can relate to. Because when I understand where I'm coming from, the country or the cultural background, then I know who I am. The mind can grasp on that. Later on in life, you hopefully learn that these questions have been needed for you to understand who you actually are. it is for us a stepping stone to go deeper within yourself. Because when you have answered these questions, what is coming next? You might not feel that your journey has ended when it comes to discovering who you are. But many of you on your planet, yes, from a physical point of view, from a human being point of view, there is a lot of confusion. Cultural backgrounds are being mixed, growing up in different countries. Who are you? That is the question we would like to end this video with. Who are